Morning, everyone. Richard Miller here, and you've reached the Never Not Here channel. And today we're talking as usual, but we want to kind of like find out not only why do people come and listen, but why do people want to talk. I mean, I have a certain feeling that I like to share, and why? I mean, I never used to. And, you know, at a certain point in my life, I also had the feeling that I wanted to seek, or I wanted to see what other people were doing in life, or see if I was missing anything, I suppose, or just not invent the wheel and see what the rest of humanity's up to. And that went through various stages. And then at some stage in your life, you know, you feel like, oh gosh, it was so easy. But why didn't I know before? You know, I could have easily, in other words, or someone could have given me a hint. And so then it almost feels like you have to be old to get to that place. But that's not necessarily the case, and that's not the message. You know, the message is that for me, it took a certain amount of years to say, well, what is the easy part of life and what is the hard part of life? And, you know, have divided up in the way that's most comfortable. And so today we're in Ojai, California. We're with Alice and Richard Matzkin, and welcome.
Hi.
Here we are.
So sometimes we think maybe we're talking about aging or something, but I'm just trying to say, well, maybe we're not, you know. Okay, like it took us a certain amount of years to get what we might call a certain amount of wisdom. But I mean, is that necessarily the case? Do you need all those years? Are we really talking about aging? Is this just an old guys club, or what is this?
There's girls too.
Yeah.
I think we need those years. I think you just have to live a certain amount of time to get a perspective. And it's extremely hard not to. You know, I don't know very many young people who have as wide a view as an older person. It's something that comes with the years. That's my opinion.
It's not only the width, though, right? It's a certain depth we're talking about. Because, okay, especially me, like I did all kinds of things and changed my life upside down every 10 years or less. So then you could say I had a lot of width. And maybe I could say that, well, if I made a mistake, I never went deep with anything, you know. Even an investment, let's say, if you bought a penny worth of stock of Walmart at a certain time, you'd be a millionaire, you know, but I never hung on to anything or kept doing any kind of a career. And so in that way, I mean, was my width the best part, or what would it mean, depth?
Well, I think the width adds to the depth. I think when you're able to see a bigger picture, a wider picture, it tends to deepen you.
So all your experiences are just grist for the mill. I mean, every single thing that you do in your life is some kind of a learning experience. So the more of those you accumulate, the deeper you can go. That's what I think. And also, I think as you get older, you know, you kind of drop some of the soap operas that you have in life when you're younger, and you're a little bit more peaceful. So maybe there's a little bit more room for wisdom to seep in, because your mind isn't chattering so fast.
That's what I like. I like that, you know, because when you say depth and width, okay, maybe the width, what you learn by having so many experiences, that any one of them is not so darn important. And maybe to be so intense about, you know, I got to have this, I got to have that. I'm all single-mindedly focused. I was always single-mindedly focused, don't get me wrong. But I mean, to see that those are all kind of like nice ideas, you know. But I mean, they're not really the meaning of life. And so then you play a nice idea for a while, but in life, the meaning, you know, you don't find the meaning of life there. It comes before that idea.
Well,
I don't get it. Can you try and explain that a little? clearly.
Well, anyhow, I mean, just think of the diversity of humanity. I mean, what makes us all different is that we can all have in a way, a possibility to interpret life in a certain way and try to deepen that interpretation. Or at a certain time, we can even drop that interpretation and just say, well, take on someone else's interpretation, or otherwise maybe just try to leave it kind of like an open space and see what really comes in without any nudging one way or the other. I mean, that might be a pretty advanced state, like where you're really willing to experiment with your ideas.
Well, I know for me, it's always been this way since I've been a young person, and now that I'm an older person, is to look for the positive side of life. So my glass has always been, has never been half empty, it's always been half full. So I'm always looking for that in my life. And so no matter what I'm doing, no matter what's happening, I'm always looking for the lesson in it that's the positive lesson. And that's just how I've always operated my life. It's the same with aging, you know. With aging, I want to look for the positive side of growing older. You know, I know that there's a lot to deal with as you get older and older and older. So I want to be able to be the kind of person that can look deep inside and feel, you know, content and accepting and surrendered to what's happening for me, and to appreciate all the moments that I have.
Actually, I was raised as a Christian Scientist, and so that's a very positive type of. It's a just to say it's a religion that says what you see is not necessarily what you get. Somehow there's a principle that's more fundamental than the appearance of life, and they try to put that into practice to make you more healthy and more prosperous, and maybe have better relationships by seeing some inner truth. But for a long time, I always thought, as a kid, that was kind of like a denial of what's real, or what was always there, you know, and they would just blank it out. So then, I suppose positivity can be used. It's definitely a benefit, but it's also could be used as blinders, maybe.
Well, I mean, you know, you have different ways to look at life. You know, I mean, you can choose how you want to live your life. You know, you can put love in one hand, you can put fear in the other hand, and you can choose which one you want. And I choose love, you know, I just always have. And
that's why I married her.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's just a way of looking at life. I mean, you know, you can see people that look like we have a friend who, from the outside, he looked like he was the most happy person in the whole world. He had everything. He had a beautiful home. He had a beautiful relationship. He was the top of his field of what he did. He was just an amazing artist. You know, he had a million friends, and he killed himself. So what's that all about? You know. So I don't know why I brought that up.
Oh yeah, well no, that's good, because I mean, there's something there that motivates us, which is not just like you say, okay, I choose life. So, but it's not necessarily cerebral. Or, you know, a great part of it is not cerebral. Somehow that you have something built in that it feels better to choose life. Where for him, it felt better to acknowledge that there was some kind of a suffering there, or something wasn't working, you know, and it felt like he had acknowledged that. And you could just say to the guy, look, I mean, just look at all the people that are less fortunate than you, or some kind of a thing like that. Just put it into perspective. And it wouldn't really compute, maybe, you know.
No, it wouldn't have.
It wouldn't have, you know. Just everybody's got their own attitudes in life, you know, and our attitude just happens to be a good one.
But what's interesting is that Alice has always had that kind of an attitude. It's just been her nature, and my attitude was much more negative, and that's sort of, it's in my art, but it's sort of just been my approach. I looked on the empty glass, you know. But somehow being around her has given me a more positive attitude.
Oh, he was pretty positive when I met him. I mean, he's had years of spiritual practice, you know, that have caused him to go inside and spend a lot of time meditating and letting go of angers that he had, you know, from the past. And so when I got him, when I trapped him, which was easy, we trapped each other in a second. We were both really on the same wavelength, and we still are. And it's not toward the negative. I've never known him to be negative, but I know that in the past he was.
Well, we probably could say that one is not more right than the other, and that probably with Alice, you probably, and maybe it's kind of like me too. I can really relate because somehow I just know that the negative for me is an imposter, and it just, I just don't truck with it. I mean, for me, I don't know. Maybe it's a dismissal. But on the other side, when you start to look deeply at yourself, and we could say do spiritual work. Well, a lot of constructs that we built our life around seem to deconstruct, and sometimes they don't only deconstruct, they crumble. Mm-hmm. And with that crumbling, what's left? I mean, you can construct something new, and oftentimes we do. And, these are kind of beliefs probably that we're constructing or interpretations of, what's going on here. And, maybe even those things crash too. And then pretty soon there's kind of like nothing left. And it looks like there's an emptiness there, It's somehow, even spiritual lore talks about approaching this emptiness that is fundamental maybe to existence. And I don't know if that's too deep to really get involved in your daily life, but somehow it bonks people on the head, and then that feels like a loss because they used to have a full life, full of beliefs, full of goals, full of ideas, and then those things don't seem right anymore. It just seems like I can't move on those anymore. And
well, I think what happens is when those concepts deconstruct, what's left is space, emptiness, which I think can get filled with something new, something different. And it could be something more you. You know what I'm saying?
No, I totally agree, but I mean, for a while there, it looks like something was lost that used to be there. And many people take that as kind of like a fundamental part of life, that life is suffering. And tell me.
There is suffering in life, but it's just part of life. There's always going to be loss. There's always going to be something that happens in life. It's just a matter of what you do with that. What you do with that loss and suffering that comes up.
Well, what are the options?
Yeah, to kill yourself, or to just to go on with life, and just keep looking for the goal, looking for the positive side, just looking for what it's going to make you feel good inside, what's going to make you feel happy. You can't be happy every second of your life, but your basic nature can be one of a happy person, even though you may suffer things that are not happy. Life is a mixture of everything's change. I mean, the one thing you can depend upon in life is that things change.
And aging there's a lot of change in aging and a lot of loss.
Yeah.
And, probably more than any other time of life, it's a time of suffering. Well, it's a time of loss.
Yeah.
And it can be suffering, or it can be, this is it, and dealing with it.
I mean, like loss, okay, a lot of times we lose our friends and stuff, especially at a certain age, and if we live longer than they do, otherwise they lose us, right? But I mean, and our relatives, okay, so we have to lose our mother and father sooner or later, pretty soon, But I mean, what do we lose? Our capacities?
Yeah. You lose your sense of taste. You lose
your mind.
Your mind. You lose. It's just constant.
You lose your eyesight.
Well, I don't know if you lose your mind. I mean, maybe you just lose your memories, or But I mean, is that really that's what's been distracting us all the time? Maybe maybe you gain your mind in a way. You start to control it. In other words, it can settle instead of running.
Well, that's true too, and also if you really lose it, then you forget all your memories, and so you've got a lot of emptiness there. So that's probably got its good points, just more difficult for the people that are around you.
Because they got to wipe your butt.
Because we were saying, what can you do with loss? Well, one thing you can do, I mean, in a way you're saying accept it, but I mean, you say accept it, but one thing you could throw it away, just whatever you're losing, just let it go totally. And
Exactly.
In that empty space, maybe something totally new can fill in.
Yeah.
It does.
But I think what happens when people get older is when the loss comes, it's just so painful, and they just they obsess on what they're losing rather than the space that can come from the loss.
So they're not letting go of the loss, but they're not
right.
celebrating the space. I mean, the space is probably the most valuable thing you can have.
Yeah.
But they're living in the past of what was instead of in the present of what is. And some people are lucky to transcend that. I mean, Aunt Kitty, which is one of the people that, which is Richard's aunt in one of the series of paintings I did, well, she was like driving her car around till way into her 90s, and all of a sudden one day, she just kept driving. She could have ended up on the other side of the country thinking she was going around the block, And finally we just had to say to her, because she didn't have any kids, we were kind of like the people that were kind of like her children. We just said, Aunt Kitty, you can't drive anymore. You're getting lost and it's dangerous. And then she kind of like freaked out because she'd been so independent. And so finally we said, you just can't do it anymore. And we literally, hid her keys from her so she couldn't take her car out. And, she kind of balked at that for about a week, just, where's my car, and, every day she lost it. Every day she called us and told us that her car had been stolen, and finally it got stolen permanently. And after a couple of weeks, she just kind of let it go. And she just moved on to the next thing. And then we had to move her out of her place because she wasn't able really to take care of herself. We went into her house and everything was just filthy. And she was a very immaculate person. And we realized that she couldn't live. She wasn't taking care of herself there. She couldn't handle it. So we had to move her into a retirement hotel. And she balked at that for a couple of weeks. She said, there's all these old people running around. I want to look at all these old people. And then she just got into the program. So each thing that happened to her in her life, each ability that she lost, she'd balk at it for a minute, and then she'd kind of like surrender into it. And she was very, very peaceful. And she was a wonderful model, I just hope that if I get to that place in my life where things have to be taken away from me by somebody else, that I can be surrendered and accepting of it and just live in the moment of my life.
And that's the key word, is surrender. I mean, surrender to life, surrender to the moment. Because if you don't, then you're fighting reality.
And the moment is all that really we have anyway. I mean, it is. There's nothing else really. And we've got all our memories, we've got all our thoughts of the past and all our visions of the future, but the visions of the future are fantasy trips, and the past already happened.
And the past are what? What is the past?
It already happened.
Yeah.
The past is over. It's a dream.
Yeah, it's a memory, right. Surrender's a tough one, though, because we're always taught not to surrender. We're taught to fight a good fight, right? And so then how do we go against all that teaching? I mean, we even teach our kids to stand up and fight in school, or, keep studying and study harder and, apply yourself more. And, it's so much ingrained into us.
But sometimes the surrender is surrendering to the fight.
Yeah.
If there's a fight in front of you, then and you don't want to do it or whatever, sometimes you have to surrender into that. Make sense?
It gets to be kind of a mind trip at this point, so it's hard to really verbalize it. But it's sort of surrendering, meaning sort of being an accepting of the what is, and the what is could be anything. But it's accepting what's happening. Like my mother's last words when she died were "It is what it is," and that's a surrender. It is what it is, and plunk, she's gone,
Not, oh my God, I'm dying. It is what it is.
She probably went through that too, actually. But anyhow, well, I don't know. I can think of my mother when she died, but I also got an aunt too. But he's not an aunt. He's my brother, and he's 20 years younger because Kitty's 94, right?
Well, Kitty's now nothing.
Oh, yeah?
Kitty's into infinity and eternity.
Oh, yeah.
She died at 97.
97.
Oh, yeah.
We have an aunt we're dealing with now who's 94.
Uh-huh.
Who just had an operation and went from being independent to not independent in 1 minute. So, she's going through that form of surrender for herself, realizing that she can't take care of herself and she may have to go into assisted living, but she's looking at it. She's not screaming about, oh my God, 5 minutes ago I was driving my car, playing cards, and doing whatever, but she's going, I need help. So, and that's a form of surrender, just to really look at what's happening in the moment and just acknowledge it.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. So there you go,
So anyhow, I was just saying that, like my brother is fighting with dementia symptoms.
Oh, boy.
And that was kind of rough too, because if we take him to some kind of assisted living or somewhere there, everyone's in their 80s and 90s, and he's only 65, and so then that does really feel out of place for him. And like a year ago, we took him out of his house, and the same whole thing, he would get lost all the time with his car and with his bicycle, and maybe now he's kind of getting his feet on the ground again, and he can actually negotiate. He doesn't go too far now, and doesn't get so much lost, and but I mean, he's in a way accepting it, but in a way not. It's hard to see. It's kind of like, it's very insightful for someone that is not having that problem.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
That's a very tough one.
I mean, I can see accepting physical disabilities, but I really have a lot of trouble with the idea of dementia or Alzheimer's. In fact, one of the sculptures that I did, I think it really captures the horror that's in my mind about losing my mind. It's a man in kind of a this kind of position with a raven on his head, who has opened up a hole and is taking out brain material. Pretty weird.
It's horrible. And the guy is going like this. It's powerful.
But it's a very raw depiction of my fear of losing my mind. And that's probably one of my greatest fears.
So you've done a lot of spiritual work, but sometimes the way they phrase it in spiritual work is somehow we want to either gain mastery on our mind or maybe not have it have mastery over us, which in a way means either lose it or somehow tame it or calm it down or not take it so seriously. Or, sometimes I even look at my brother and just say, well, maybe that's enlightened. I don't know. So, but it's not troubled by so many thoughts, Then troubling thoughts come in too, I don't know where the thoughts and where the blank is, I don't know even if there is a blank. I'm trying to understand it.
Yeah, but I guess unless you're in it, actually, it's hard to really get it. And so you're the witness to your brother, and that it's hard, it's hard to figure it out. And for you, I guess it's just accepting that's where it's at, and for him, and loving him.
Right, exactly.
What else can you do, It's like you're powerless over somebody else. You're powerless over yourself in most ways, but you're certainly powerless over another human being, too.
Let's talk about being powerless over ourselves.
Yeah.
What's the options? Is there a way that is there a little chink in the armor where we're not powerless, or is there a way we can find a thread that we can follow that can give us back our power or give us some power? What is it? Is it just karma? Is it predestined? Why do we just do the same things over and over again and not? And even when we acknowledge that they're not working for us,
because we're idiots. I don't know.
That's a good answer.
Yeah, haven't you done something like, I remember a long time ago I was in a relationship way before Richard, and it was a terrible relationship, and I was powerless to make it any different. It just the way it was, but I kept in with it. I might as well just gone and banged my head against the wall 5,000 times.
Well, you did.
It would have been probably less painful. you know.
Well, looking back on it, were you powerless, or just somehow you didn't see where the change could be made? Or I mean,
Exactly.
with maturity, maybe we see that we weren't always powerless.
Well, hindsight is always good. Yeah, we probably weren't powerless, but that's another word that's really a hard one to put into words. You do
Powerless?
it.
I'm powerless to do that.
um, but
I think what you're saying is, you know, it's the old thing about, do we have free will or not? You know, and there's just no way to get the truth of that, because whatever you do, you could say, well, that was just karma. There was nothing I could have done about it. And everything you do, you could say that it's just karma. It's just karma. And I think there's validity in that viewpoint. You know, in growing up, I was an idiot in certain ways, and whatever I saw in front of me, that was the way I needed to move. And in order for me to get a wider view, I had to go in those directions, make those mistakes. And I don't think there were other real options that I could have done, because that was what I needed to do at the time. So I don't know. I don't know.
A lot of times they're like spiritual investigators, let's say. They might take a lot of different tacks about saying that we're not the doer, it's a divine dance. It's kind of the karma idea and stuff like that. But I mean, and then they might even look at science and say, well, there is a delay when thoughts come in, and they're trying to say that actions are already initiated before the thought comes in, and actually the thought is just claiming the action and saying, I'm the author. But maybe and then, you know, various schools speaking about surrender, they're saying you're not the author, or don't claim to be the author. You know, okay, you're the actor, you're the divine actor, maybe. But that's a question that's always up in the air, like, what are we really doing? And but yet, I mean, it seems that we grow and we outgrow things.
Mm-hmm. But then again, is our growth free, or is it determined? Who knows?
it is what it is. Whatever it is what it is, you know. It's just a matter of, you know, just the way you want to live your life. You know, if you want to feel, like I want to feel content inside, you know, and if I'm feeling discontent inside, then I know that there's something that I'm not doing right for myself. And so I have to alter that. And maybe that's where the power comes in, where you can kind of like alter it and kind of like look at it and say, well, what is it that I'm doing that is causing this to happen, or causing me to feel this way, or whatever. And then you can just kind of like feel what it is that you need to do. Or
what do you alter? You know, what do you alter? Do you actually change the situation, or do you just change the way you look at it, or what?
It's an attitudinal change.
I think the key
and sometimes it's situational too, you know, but it's usually the attitude and the situation, everything kind of like move together. They're kind of all together.
What you started with was about, you know, feeling something and then having that as something that then it sort of forces you to alter whatever behaviors or whatever. But it's the feeling that is the initial impetus. So, and I think what often happens is that people numb themselves and don't feel, and are unwilling to feel. And I think the basis of a lot of spiritual work and meditation is to be able to look inside and experience the feelings. And once you do that, once you're able to feel, then the path opens much more easily as to what to do and where your actions will go. Does that make sense?
Maybe that's where we don't have any free will, is what we feel. I mean, we seem to have a free will to either numb it or to feel it, but we don't really. How can we steer the feeling, or can we? Maybe we can.
I think so. I think that's the basis of meditation, is to sit and to allow whatever comes up to come up and not try to do anything about it, but just to experience it. And it's a practice. And as a practice, it's just like a muscle that you exercise, you get better at it. So you get better over time through meditation to feel whatever's occurring without trying to change it. And I think that is, like I said, the origin of positive action.
I guess maybe we feel like these feelings are in a way fixed, and okay, let's just say I want to have a good life or a good time, or I want to have positive feelings, not negative feelings, so I'll just walk away from the positive feelings. So that's kind of the impetus, not to feel it or to numb it. And then somebody tells us, oh, well, when you feel it, they complete. And so then they kind of dissipate. And then we think, oh, that's another way to do it then. But I mean, that's still kind of like a thought process. Something that came to me often enough is that feelings that come up are, in a way, based on beliefs. Because a good place to look is with justice. Because if we believe and have certain beliefs about justice, then we see some kind of event, and we really have a feeling. I mean, I don't know. I mean, what to say? Like, what's a gross example? If we see somebody that's hurt, then we have a feeling like, oh my God, that's unjust, and then we have a terrible feeling, right? And that it shouldn't be like that, and that something should be done about those other people, and the people that caused it, we think we have a feeling about them. It spills over on them. But maybe if we see that a chicken is hurt, and we'll say, oh my gosh, we're going to have fried chicken tonight, we might feel that's great, let's cut his head off, I mean, and we have a different belief about that, right? I mean, that chickens are food and people are brothers.
Yeah. Yep. I think you're talking about concepts creating feelings, and I think what I was talking about was just the little origins of feelings as they come up, the little origins of thoughts as they come up, and that's what you see when your mind is quiet.
You see how crazy you are.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying, like, maybe the reason they're coming up is because there's a buried concept there, a concept that's in the subconscious, and that's what's really causing it. And that you could try on a new concept and notice. You could even do that as an exercise, try on a new concept and notice that, oh my gosh, that doesn't feel so bad at all. Or that feeling totally changes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That'd be a hard thing to do, to try on a new concept.
Well, I mean, on certain things you can. They're easier, Some things are life and death and they feel like so important to you, or you were abused as a child or something. You can't put another concept on that one. But maybe one that just says, okay, you keep losing your glasses. And then, then you find them later, but you keep churning around on all the desks looking for them. I don't know, what could be another concept for that? It would be easy, just buy a few more pairs of glasses and put one on each desk, right?
That's what we do.
We have 700 pair of reading glasses. They're in every place you look in the house. Here, look, right here. Here, sitting on the table, a pair of reading glasses. They're all over the place. So
well, you don't feel bad about losing your glasses anymore. You're always finding them, actually, right?
Right.
It's just another kind of a setup.
Yeah, it's like a nightmare. They're all over the place.
Well, they actually reproduce.
Yeah.
I wonder what the pupa form of glasses is.
Right, really. Sorry.
So we haven't mentioned yet, but you're both artists. Richard's a sculptor, and Alice is a painter.
Right. And so we were talking about aging before. So for the last 18 years, when we realized we were getting older, I looked in the mirror and I went, "Oh my God, what happened? She used to be so cute. Now she's like."
So she still is.
Thank you. But so and just looking in the mirror and seeing that aging going on. And so for me, I just decided I was going to meet women 70 years and older. That was the first thing I was going to do. And I was going to ask them what makes life worthwhile. Because I looked at myself and I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I embarked upon a quest, and I met 21, that was the beginning, 21 amazing women who gave me a lot of teachings about life. And as I painted them and I looked at their lines and their wrinkles and their sagging skin, I realized that was just as beautiful as anything, that beauty goes so far beyond the surface. And that the lines and the wrinkles and the sagging skin are just the story of their years. It's kind of like history written all over your face, and there's a real beauty to it. And that's how we started. So we just started doing art around aging.
So you painted all those 21?
I painted those. That was the beginning of it. First, I painted 21. Yeah, I painted 21 portraits of women from all walks of life. 70 years and old. The oldest one was 105, and she's Beatrice Wood, and she's passed away now. In fact,
I'll show you a picture of her.
Yeah, Beatrice Wood. It's on the cover here. Wait a minute here. Anyway, she was 105, but I.
Oh yeah. Right, we see that. Yeah.
That was 9 days before she died.
And she was just, so full of life. At 105, there's not very many 40-year-olds who were so engaged and so full of life.
And when I one time when she was 100 years old, I was sitting in her studio with her. We had the privilege of being with her while she was a potter. And she was throwing pot after pot after pot at 100 years old. And I just sat there, like in awe of this. I thought, we might have times in our life when we feel like, oh God, we'll never do anything creative again. Nothing's ever going to happen. But the well of creativity never runs dry. If you can look for somebody who's 100 years old who can sit in her studio and throw pot after pot after pot after pot and create beauty and still be turned on to it, And then when she lost the facility to really have the strength to work on the potter's wheel, she was writing and drawing. And she was doing that to her last days. So there were so many women that I interviewed and painted who were just these amazing people, And I realized that you don't have to dry up and blow away when you get older. You can still be as productive, as creative as possible, as long as you have you've got your mind and you can function. Some people get taken down physically and they can't do things. But although there were a couple of the women that really were taken down physically, one of them was a leader of a choir. And even though she had terrible health issues, she still was able to sing and to inspire people to sing. So, it just sort of, for us, beginning to look, using our art to look at our aging in a positive light and just see what's possible for it. And now we've entered in, and so we're beginning to live that life of older people, productive older people. So hopefully we'll be an inspiration, to the younger people.
So that's an amazing part of being an artist, because you can just get a germ of an idea and you can follow that idea and take it where it goes, and it can become a huge idea and something really can develop. But a lot of us don't seem to have that freedom to follow our star.
Well, your star doesn't have to be an art. Your star can be knitting. Your star can be, building water systems. Your star can be, going into your garden. Your star can be your family. Your star can be meditation. It doesn't matter what it is.
One thing that seems kind of almost like a miracle is if you can really know what your interest is. And so many parts of our lives, we don't know what we're interested in, or we know darn well we're not interested in that part of our life. And that's what I'm saying is a blessing about being an artist, not necessarily an artist with art, but somehow being able to have a career path or something that can just go where you look, and you follow your nose in a way. And I don't know, I'll just give a small example. When I was in the university, it was in the 60s, and I was mostly there because I wanted to have a draft deferment. And I wasn't interested, but I knew what I wasn't. You know, I was doing that as a secondary thing to protect me from the draft. And I think many of us never know anything but that. We're doing our job because we have a family and because we believe in investments and believe in things, but somehow that job, we've never found our interest. We've always tried to, even from school, we've tried to conform to some image or some kind of an overlay or some curriculum, or somebody was trying to tell us, be an engineer, be a doctor, you know, and we never really had the free time just to kind of start from a null point and build up a life that actually was built on what we're totally passionate about.
Yeah.
It happened a lot.
But I think that most people know what interests them and what could provide passion for them, but they deny it. It's like, oh yeah, I'd love to play the trombone, but I gotta earn a living. So they put what could be an important part of their life, they put it aside in favor of practical, or being practical. And sometimes they never are able to explore that thing that would have just really opened up their lives. I play drums, and I love it. It's an important part of my life, and luckily I was able to explore that part. And if I hadn't, if I had been driven to be a success, and put all my energies into other things, I would never have had that beautiful part of my life of being involved in music. And I think a lot of people do that. They just put down what could have been their passion.
Let's try to talk real practical, in other words, and let's talk to a lot of these people that even some of them don't know they're doing that, and some of them sure darn well realize it. But then the reasoning is that I'm caught in this web, I've already got all these commitments and I've made all these promises in my life, and the only way I know how to fulfill it now is either being a dentist or, just going to this mundane job and working where I can't be creative, and I'm caught in this corporation where we all know that you can't really do what is most creative and most, you have to go through the protocol, you have to go through all the rules and all that stuff, and they kind of waste a lot of time, and I could do this job so much better. And I mean, okay, what can we talk, how can we talk to those people? Because it always seems like I'm caught in this cage. And so I don't know how I got here, but I'm here now, and so what do I do, Do I just gut it out until I retire in 12 years or 24 years, or yikes?
Well, one thing about being older is you realize that time is passing, and that it's about having a beautiful life. And so the things that give you joy and passion become so much more important. And I think if younger people were able to get a sense of what it was like to be older, they would also make time for passion. Because what a horrible thing to wake up being old and think, oh my God, I could have done this. This was not a part of my life, but I could have been. How sad that is.
Basically, that's our message, right? I'm doing it my way, you're doing it in your way. You're not really studying old people. You're just saying, you're studying young people and saying, look, I mean, you said if a young person could know what it's like to be old. Well, I mean, sometimes losing their facilities happens temporarily during a disease or a shock, or, even if they get cancer and they get over it. Still, it really reboots the whole system, right?
Right,
exactly.
Right. What a great teacher is illness. It's a great teacher.
My son is 47 years old, and he's got a serious heart condition. He's got a pacemaker defibrillator in him, and he's got a serious heart condition. And it really did alter his life, his whole attitude about life. He's the guy at 47 that says, every morning that I wake up, I'm grateful to be alive. So that's exactly what you're saying, and so it's that does happen. And, he's like an old man in a young body.
Well, that might have happened to me at 7. I had appendicitis, and then I had a kidney operation at 11, and I always thought I had a kind of an attitude that I was fragile as a teenager, and that I was scared to get into sports or really confront other people, other kids. And I was kind of a loner and had 1 or 2 friends. And it colored my life even back at 7 years old. I didn't have to wait till 47.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. You're just lucky if you've got some kind of a passion. Not everybody's going to have it, And that's just what when we began looking deeply into our aging, is when we decided that we really needed to cultivate. It was important to cultivate what we had, and in order to just be happy.
And what's interesting is that I approached it in my way, which was so different than Alice. We talked before about Alice being really positive, and she was looking for the positive side in interviewing these women. Well, I looked at the negative side. Some of my sculptures are, like an old man being embraced by death, or chased by death, or just a lot of what might be considered negative. But by my exploring that, it opened up to positive. It was like when you don't talk about the elephant in the room, it becomes you start smelling the shit more.
It's overbearing, right?
Yeah. So for me, it was looking into the negative opened up the positive, and that was important in my life.
In a way, I want to talk more about passion. I don't want to leave this subject right away, but, I almost want to go and say, like, let's leave passion behind, because, we all have, people probably have an idea that passion is so gung-ho and so it hits you so hard, but it doesn't have to hit you so hard. And they're not going to find it if they're looking at it as that's what it's going to be. What they need to do is just find interest, Find what's interesting, whether it's working with other people, or whether, it's just developing a science or some kind of model making ability, or some kind of interest.
Something that you enjoy, an interest in life, something that you enjoy. Passion really is a very passionate word. I know what you're saying.
Yeah, out of that interest can come a passion, okay. But
Absolutely. Yeah. No, you're absolutely, I agree totally what you're saying.
So then how do we find interest? What kind of coaching can we do? Somehow start a small project, somehow leave it. It's got to have something to do with time, right? Because if you don't leave any time for it, obviously it's never going to happen, right?
Right.
And you can't force it either. Some people have it, some people don't. That's just the way it works in the world. Not everybody's got everything.
But people have to have it. I can't imagine anyone without an interest. It's just part of being a human being,
even if it's watching TV.
Well, those are tough interests because, like, let's say you're always a consumer. You're not so much a creator. And so then, as a consumer, okay, it could be TV you're consuming, or it could be the movies, or it could be books. And books are kind of a little bit easier maybe. But what comes out of that is, out of consumption, you become a critic. And then, you're saying people aren't so good. Of course, they're way better than you could do that job. But as a critic, it's kind of like a negative kind of thing, like where you're saying, oh, that wasn't as good as this. And somehow it doesn't relate to my life, though, because I'm not really doing it. So as a critic, I don't see that can be a real interest. I don't know how that can. At least I'm afraid of being a critic. I'd rather be more tolerant and find myself in something that was more and more tolerant. If I try to make things or do things or play instruments or music, I'd probably get more tolerant about other musicians because I would say, hey, it's not all that easy, you know, right? Or if I was a painter, I would probably like a lot more paintings and wouldn't be a critic of painters, you know, and say, well, you know, that was a beautiful piece of art, you know, and I wouldn't say, oh, no, the colors didn't blend right or blah, 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 you know, the proportions weren't just right or, yeah. And so then somehow the creative aspect, I would say, is the interest should kind of focus on a creative aspect much more than a consumption. I don't know, Alice. I'm not so sure I want to agree with you that everybody doesn't have everything. I mean, I'd rather like what Richard said. Everyone's got to have an interest somewhere.
Well, I'm sure everybody has everything, but some people don't know they even have it.
They don't know it. That's it.
That's what it is. It's not that they don't have it. They don't know they have it.
Well, how can they find it? How can they know it?
Oh, I mean, you know.
Come on, tell us. You found it. You find it easy.
You know, it's an internal desire. It's just an internal desire to want to have something in your life. You can't force a person to do that. You just hope for their own sake, if they want to find peace and happiness in their life, that they find something that gives them pleasure in their life.
So it's a new set of priorities, right? Somehow they have to reprioritize and give some time.
And it's just a matter of what's important to them. You know, some people love being miserable, and there's nothing you can do about it. You know,
I don't know if that. I think there is something you can do about it. I've always thought there was, you know, or otherwise maybe I'd close my shop here.
There is something you can do about it, but some people don't know there's something you can do about it.
And don't want to.
And they don't want to.
Maybe that's their passion, is being miserable.
Miserable, yeah.
There are people like that who are passionately miserable. And their goal in life is to make other people miserable too.
Yeah, we know somebody just like that. Every time something good comes her way, she goes crazy. So I mean, you know, it's what can you do? I mean, but
sometimes I have something else, you know. It's called like act it out, and then somehow if I act it out enough, that maybe, and if enough people see how stupid it is, maybe I'll finally see it. And so maybe that's a plea, you know. It's like a plea, please see me. You know, please. And I'm not saying, I don't know. I understand that people act in certain ways that look like, you know, even people like Tolle had written a book about, and he calls it the pain body, and how people rejoice in their pain body, or something in you somehow wants to relate to someone that's having the same misery as you. And somehow it makes it more real, and like all that time you wasted on that seems like an investment, so that somehow it has to have some meaning or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, you know, all we know is right now we're getting older. For us personally, we're getting older, and we want our life to be as peaceful as possible. And that's just where we're coming from at this point. And we've been lucky to do it through our art. And through also
our writing.
Our writing.
And now we put together a video of Alice's interviews of the women. So that's another art, is putting that out. And Alice is finishing up a calendar of a project she worked on years ago of naked women.
Old naked women. 12 of them, including her. Yeah.
And it's like we're more passionate now than we were when we were younger. It's coming out now.
Well, so am I, definitely. Way much more, you know, but somehow I have a different set of priorities, and I put the thing in gear. And once you get it in gear, it starts to build momentum. And then it gets more and more beauty, and it's more and more somehow actualizes itself in the world more and more, and makes an imprint on the world somehow. Your capacity to give to the world is increased just because you're riding this vehicle that but first you got to get it in a gear, and maybe that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah, get your vehicle into gear. I like that. Get your vehicle.
Well, the vehicle is your interest. It starts simply with that, you know, and it develops into a passion and into a giving. Somehow you can give that passion.
I think when you get older, there's more of that impetus to give. I know that that's happening with us, you know. we've lived a lot of our life, and we've been able to enjoy the work of others and the gifts of others, so that our life is beautiful. And I think it's time for us to give back, and that's a lot of what we're doing comes from that desire to give back, for for what we've been given, and I think a lot of what's happening with older people now is that they're volunteering, and they are trying to leave a legacy, something that gives back to the world what they've been given.
And also the new people that are coming up now, at least in America, we can only really talk about America because, there's so much going on in the world, but there are a lot of them are products of the 60s, and they had a completely different way of looking at life than the people that came from the 40s, the 30s, the 20s, and the turn of the century. And it's going to be very interesting to see. I think we're going to see a real productive and creative bunch of old people coming up. And there's going to be a lot of them because there's 10,000 of them a day turning 60 right now. And it's going to be a lot of wrinkles.
Whatever I give, let's say, I think I give because I realized I could do it, and it's not even that hard, but it had a kind of there was a long time when I thought there was no room in life for all this giving, and it shouldn't, life should be used in a different way. And it should be used to accumulate, for instance, because that was a belief structure. And
that's what happens when you're younger.
You're more self-absorbed.
That's your time. It's a time of doing, and when you get older, it's the time of being. So you're being now.
No, I'm doing a lot. A lot, even more, I would say.
Yeah, but
but you have a different perspective on it.
You're not trying to. I'm getting this house, and I'm getting a good car, and that's not what you're about. You're the quality of being. This is what I intuit from you. The quality of being is sort of guiding the things that you're doing now. So yes, you're doing a lot, but it is not coming from a selfish place or a place of trying to get for yourself. I think it's probably coming from that inner
generous place.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that that's not natural. It's not a natural revelation, and that doesn't happen, in a natural way. But I'm also trying to say that if you kind of can step back and take a look at your life, which is so easy to do, really, but it does take the idea that I'm going to do it and that there's time enough to do it and all that kind of stuff. Then certain interests, you can really examine if you're that interested in what you're doing, and if you're that interested in what your sports are or what your diversions are, or if you're all that interested in I don't know, just basic. Here's another thing. Let me just jump to this and say that you can go through decades and decades, and you're actually always coming off of something. Like you're coming off of caffeine, or you're coming off of a couple of beers, or you're coming off of some other stimulus, or you're coming off of overwork or over sports. And your body is throwing off all these toxins, and you never really have a natural moment when you're just a happy camper. And so then all those interests that you think you have, and they're all exaggerated, right? Because as a man, it's tough to do the same thing over and over again. You got to always do it better. And as a sportsman, you've got to become more of a winner. Or, as a bungee jumper, you got to jump out of airplanes or something, right? I mean, we mistreat ourselves so much that it does seem that there's no time or no space for just a simple interest that could take hold of our consciousness and kind of develop just in an easygoing way.
Everybody's got their own path to get to it. It all depends on what you want in your life, for yourself in your life. For us, we want We want inner peace, so we'll do everything that we can to do that. And that's just what our intention is, to have happiness, to have love, to have peace. That's what we want, and so everything's geared to that. And you can still do all the stuff, but you can still gear with your intention is what takes you.
Yeah. And there's 24 hours in the day, and if you can't preserve an hour or a half hour for something, it's a sad life,
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. And that half hour or hour can just flower and just make your life beautiful. Make the rest of the 23 hours beautiful. But if you don't take it for yourself, it's just a grind. I think it's a necessity. It's as much as air to give yourself space to do your passion or to do your interest. I think it's necessary for health.
And you're lucky if you do it. You're lucky if you do it. Not everybody's going to do it.
Yeah, you keep saying that, darn it. But anyhow, like you're saying you guys have chosen peace. You want peace. Now, everyone, I think, wants peace and fulfillment. But they've fallen into a trap where they say tomorrow's a better day, tomorrow it'll come. And somehow you want peace today. Now, that's a huge difference, right?
Yeah. Well, it's just an attitudinal thing. Everybody is different. Everybody's got the capacity to have whatever, to have peace. It's just a way, what's important,
Yeah. For us, peace is a choice that we make at every moment. Like if we have a disagreement, we rarely have a disagreement, but if we have a disagreement, it's always in the context of needing to have peace within that disagreement, so it doesn't last very long. We choose not to create discord. So always we're choosing to compromise or make the other person happy, because that brings us peace.
Yeah, and so we've been together 29 years, and we don't have a backlog of junk at all. We don't have any hit backlog of 4 years ago you did this, and now I'm mad at you for doing that, and I'm never going to talk. We don't have any of that going on. We have a really peaceful, relationship, and we have a peaceful life. And
because we've made that decision in the moment, it's going to be peaceful.
And we're going to agree and not be mad about it,
or get back
at, or feel vindictive or any of that stuff. We don't have any of that happening at all. We're very fortunate. But but when we were younger, we certainly had experiences, horrible ones, and terrible relationships, other marriages, everything else, so that when we came to this, that was the only thing that we would settle for is peace. And that's what we've had for 29 years, and it's we're madly in love. And we're best friends, and we're total supporters of each other, and yet we still have freedom to be our own people, to be the individuals that we are. We support that in each other also. So we're very fortunate, and even in our art, I'm a painter, Richard's a sculptor, but we support each other in our art. We don't have competition with each other, and we're on the same wavelength, luckily. And so we've amassed a body of work of art. We've got over what did we figure, 60, 70 pieces of art between the two of us, that are just all bursts of creativity around aging at this point. There's other stuff that we've done, but the main focus has been on aging. And Richard can walk in and say, "Oh, God, you should have made that more red up in that corner or something." And, I'll look at it instead of saying, "Oh, you big jerk, how dare you tell me that I should put red in my painting," It's like, "Oh, yeah, look at that. Well, that's an interesting idea." I can look at what he has to say. Or I can walk in and say, "Oh, you made that leg too long," or whatever. And he doesn't say, "Oh, get out of my studio. You just..."
I feel like it sometimes. It usually involves me doing a lot more work.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like
It's true.
It's true.
It's another pair of eyes.
It's another pair of eyes. So we're very fortunate in that way that we have that we're together, that we're dancing to the same tune. And we've been doing that for 29 years, and it's been our intention all along. So people in their lives can set intentions of what they want for their life, and it becomes an attitudinal change. It becomes something that's so ingrained inside that you just go for it. That's what you go for. It has nothing to do with even the mind. It just has to do with, well, what do I want for myself in my life? Do I want to be a peaceful, happy person, or do I want to be miserable, suffering, pissed off, and, mad all the time? Or what do I want? And whenever you get those feelings of anger or whatever, you have to look at it. What is that? What's causing that? Because we're humans. We have feelings, and we do have, we're not Buddhas. We're not walking around Buddhas at this point, So we do have all those feelings, but at least to look and be able to look inside of ourselves and say, okay, now this is what I have to do to change that, and to be a peaceful person, always with that intention, to be a peaceful and loving person. And so we've been able to live our lives so far in that way. And we have, we've got a lot of wonderful things happening for us, and, in our life. We've got a lot of goodness around us. We've got a lot of beautiful friends, and we're very lucky, We're like totally blessed people. But we set an intention. This is what we wanted.
I want to go back at it a little bit, and try to say how that can relate to other people, And one thing I wanted to mention was that, of course, our minds, our thoughts, can create a lot of good ideas that we want to act on.
Sure.
And somehow there's no way where our actions can catch up with our mind or do everything our mind comes up with, right? And there's some kind of a way there's got to be some kind of a way where you can sort through that and limit, because I know that I was in business for myself for many, many years, and I would always think of a million things to do, and it wouldn't seem like I would have enough time to ever complete it. And I would have these so many to-do lists, I'd get lost in the to-do lists, and it would always seem like it would be a valuable thing to do is do one more thing. Oh yeah, I got one drop of energy left. I'll do one more thing today. Oh, I'll do two more things. I could get that done too. And then that's when leaving time to find an interest might not be there. I was just feeling like, I'll be more complete if I just get this thing out of the way and not have this thing hanging over my head, Yeah. And so then how do you manage that? Because we're talking about like managing your time and allowing some time to be peaceful and to enjoy. But I mean, I can really relate to that syndrome that I'm talking about and say, What do you do when you get so many ideas and you want to thin them out?
You stay peaceful. Peaceful doesn't come in spurts. Either you're that or you're not that. You know what I mean? If you have an intention of being peaceful, even if you have 50,000 to-do lists, you work it so that you feel peaceful. You know what I mean? It's not a mind trip. Peaceful isn't a mind trip. Peaceful isn't something you do for 15 minutes a day. Peaceful is, if that's what you want in your life, that's who you are inside. And so everything that you do has that what's the word I want to use? Everything
that ground of being, sort of like, that's grounded in that.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's just what it is.
That's the foundation.
It's the foundation, and if you scramble around like a maniac, then you have to kind of look at that and just figure I'm not feeling peaceful. What is it that I'm doing? It's not making me feel peaceful. It's not like it's not a mind trip. It's like you say, it's a grounded being trip, and it's just something that's internal. And either you have it or you don't have it. It's like, what do you want? And you just go for what you want, and hopefully you can have it.
Well, like you were saying that some people have it and some don't. So then, in a way, it can be like it could come with aging, because maybe we could call it a wisdom, and so then maybe after sooner or later you turn up with that wisdom, and so it could come with aging. But in a way, we're trying to say, hey, it could happen to you too, even if you're 30, and. And you could build a beautiful life that would be, just think if you had, decades and decades and decades, and you were always peaceful and you always had an interest that you were building on. I mean, a marvelous, it could be amazing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Richard and I got together, and he was 39. He was 39 years old, and he was a very peaceful guy at 39. And he'd spent years doing the work, doing his own work, his own internal work, and and I had been on my own path also, in my own way, and had been doing my own internal work. When we got together, we really were peaceful people,
Yeah.
and it's just grown larger, and it also, I think, it affects the people that are around us. Not that we're trying to do anything, you know what I mean? But people like people love to be around us. They tell us this because here we are, a loving couple. They love being around a loving couple. And we're not trying to say, oh, we're a loving couple. We're sit with us. We're great examples. It's just it's just because I think this is what it is. I mean, I'd like to be able to be another person looking at us, and feeling it, But I know what we feel inside, and I know what it inspires in other people. That it's like, well, if you can do it, I can do it. If somebody, that's how you kind of look at it. It's sort of like looking at the Buddha and saying, if Buddha can achieve enlightenment, and Buddha was just a guy, then I can achieve enlightenment. You look at all these spiritual masters that are around. If they can achieve enlightenment, so can I. I'm human too. You know what I mean? So we all have the capacity to go deep inside and find peace. And so, that's what our like our sad ground of being has been. And luckily we've during this lifetime of finding peace, we've been artists. We were born artists, and we were able to focus our work around aging, which is, it's a time of life which really is very different. And it is our final time of life. It's the end of our life. We don't have all these years in front of us to do this, that, this, and that. You know what I mean? We have only, like 45 minutes left or whatever it is to finish off what we're going to do, or finish off what we want for ourselves. And that
gets your attention.
It's a powerful time. Life is precious. And so luckily we've been able to do it with our art, with doing, like I said, over 60, 70 pieces of artwork. I mean, our house is filled with art. Richard's done some beautiful sculptures of old lovers, for example. I mean, people think that people can't be lovers when they get old. Well, here we are. We're getting old, like that. And there's a lot, and his parents were like that, and my parents were like that. And there's a lot of people around that people can be lovers when they're old. It isn't just reserved for the young and the gorgeous. It's for the old, the wrinkled, the disheveled, and the drooping, and the varicose vein. And he's got these beautiful pieces of art that show that. And I painted like 12 naked old women with varicose veins and drooping breasts and everything else, including me. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. And it's life. It's like the fact that we're even alive it's just a miracle. I mean, why weren't we born a dog or a plant, or a mountain or a tree or an amoeba, or something like that? But we're humans. I mean, what an amazing thing. Did you ever stop and think that you're actually a human walking on this piece of dirt on the earth? Is pretty far out. So I figured as long as I was given this gift of being a human and having consciousness, I might as well, try to be happy about it.
Have you found the market for aging art, or art celebrating aging? I suppose because most of the glitz of what we call artistic, Hollywood and everything else is focused on young and focused on somehow fantasy, but the reality of approaching, I suppose, even depending on how old you're going, approaching death, might be something that repels some people.
Well, it does
It sure
repel.
does.
It really does. And we'd probably sell a lot more art if we were doing poodles. But we don't do poodles.
We're not into poodles. I mean, when we started these art projects, it wasn't for anybody's entertainment. It wasn't. We didn't say, "Oh, we're going to do this, then we're going to have this, and that's going to happen, and we're going to write a book, and we're going to do all these things." That never even entered our mind. It was more like, I'm going to just do this just so I can look inside of myself and get, look. For me, it was looking to my mentors, for somebody who was living their life in a really good way. I wanted to do that also, And so I'm going to look for people that are doing that. See, what is it that they're doing that is making their life right? And so I was able to use my art and do that. And then Richard started with, sculpturing naked old men and old lovers. And I did naked women, and I did the 21 other women that I interviewed, and I did a series of portraits of Richard's aunt from 89 to 97, just showing how what happens, like from 89 to 97, you go from like when you're birthed at 10 years old, there's this huge change. Well, when you're 89 and you go to 97, there's a huge change also, a huge physical change.
It's quick.
Like I have a painting of her riding a horse, from then going for her riding a wheelchair, to her laying on her deathbed. So I mean, it's just sort of looking at the whole spectrum of life, which we've done through our art. And then suddenly, it's like we've got this incredible body of work, like this explosion of creativity for 17 years that we're just like doing it, and people are coming by and they're looking at it and they're just like totally relating to it. And they're talking about their parents and what's going on for them,
when they look at the art,
and all this other stuff. And suddenly, our friend Jerry, our mutual friend Jerry, walks in and says, what had happened was we decided we were going to write a book. I don't even know where that came from. And Jerry says, let me give you the name of our publisher. We sent it to the publisher. Suddenly, we've got a book with all this art in it.
The first publisher
we sent it to. Now, it's we never imagined that to begin with. We never said, we're going to do all this work and then we're going to have a book, and it just happened. All this amazing stuff has happened around this art around aging. I was on Oprah. I mean, how many years ago was it? Around with the Women of Age series, the 21 portraits, talking about aging gracefully, and just some fabulous things have happened around this acknowledgement of aging that's going on. And really now, I mean, mostly it's been stuck under the table. But now it's really coming out because 10,000 people are turning 60 a day. That's a lot of people.
And then the millions more who are entering middle age.
Yeah.
And they're all questioning, what is life now that I'm getting older? What's my future going to be? It really puts you into a deeper mode, and I think we're going to see a lot more of that happening.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot more of that happening now, actually. Yeah. All of a sudden, the day that all the boomers turned 60, when they decided it was the boomer generation, it was like all of a sudden, everything changed. All the media started changing around it. And it's very interesting to see it. And still there's resistance to it. There's still, in some of the aging magazines, you see old people that are, look very, 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 very young, and there's still some kind of a focus on looking young. That is still a problem, really, in a way, because no matter what you do, you can have 400 facelifts, but they still age. You're still going to age even though you've got facelifts. You're
going to age inside.
Yeah, your guts are rotting. Your outside can look nice and firm, but
no matter what our age is, we talk about self-acceptance. So then maybe with older age, this is where it just becomes real apparent.
Exactly.
And the magic word is I am like this,
yes.
And feeling good about it, somehow feeling okay, and that's what you're showing.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's the whole thing about the calendar, is you see the flesh falling off the body, and yet you look at the energy of these women and their faces, and there's really acceptance there. And so, if they can, why can't you? There's an 87-year-old woman. If she is willing to show her body, why can't a 47-year-old?
But that doesn't mean we have to run around naked. It's like that's not going to happen. It has nothing to do with nudity or just flaunting your naked body. It's just about accepting this vehicle that we walk around in. We walk around in this vehicle it's the house to our senses and our vehicle of transportation, our home to our mind and our spirit. It's our body. To feel bad about it is insane. It just is. It's cause for pain and suffering.
Somehow self-acceptance is the beauty or the spark that comes out of the eyes.
It's
And
the
so
key.
that's the beauty that you could also capture as a painter,
Yes.
as a sculptor. Yes.
Yeah, because it's the reality of it. It's the reality of it, and it also keeps you in the moment. You know, it keeps you not trying to, you know, like be 12 years old or trying to be, you know, something that you're not, but just saying, hey, this is what I am. This is who I am today. This is me. This is it. You know, it can be shocking to look in the mirror and see, you know, you wake up in the morning, obviously there's a new liver mark on your arm, or, you know, like it's something, another wrinkle happened on your face. You did nothing but sleep, you know, and they woke up in the morning and there it was, you know. But it's precious. It's just a reminder. You look outside and, you know, the trees, and, you know, there's the seasons, and the trees lose their leaves, and, you know, the flowers die. Everything, it's got a season, and we're just part of nature.
We're entering December.
We're in December, exactly.
So anyhow, I think that you know, that when you said trying to be what you're not, and that's what a whole lifetime of that is what has blinded us from our own interests.
Exactly.
And so then that takes us back to the other part of our conversation, that the productive part of our life, and the self-acceptance and the happiness, trying to grind through certain parts of life to get some other abstract reward, which is always later, and denying ourselves of happiness moment by moment, or peace moment by moment, is probably always grounded in trying to be what we're not.
Yeah.
And so then this is a great lesson that both of you are weaving.
Yeah. Well, our book, the title of our book, which is right here, which we've won 2 awards on, by the way, is The Art of Aging, Celebrating the Authentic Aging Self. And that's what it is.
It's about celebrating.
Celebrating the authentic aging self. Because here we are, you know.
If you don't celebrate, then who knows what you're
You're
doing?
going to be miserable.
We're sorry for you, right?
You're old and decrepit, you know.
Right.
This culture does a lot of that, you know, warehouses old people and don't respect them. But, you know, there's so much wisdom. What is that saying that's so beautiful about an old person?
Yeah, when an old person dies, a library dissipates. And the library is lost. It's true.
Right.
You know, it's our
Of experiences, and the old people have so much wisdom, so much to teach us, you know.
So
And,
we're so glad that you're putting it down in artwork and paintings and in writing, and you're passing it on, and so then. And I'm doing it with movies, so.
Oh, that's great. We salute you for the work you're doing.
Salute. Oh, salute.
Well, what a fun time. I really thank you for choosing so quickly to come aboard and say hi and explain what's up with you guys.
Well, thank you for inviting us. That was very nice of you to do that. We sure enjoy meeting you.
It's a pleasure to talk to someone who is willing to go beneath the surface and really explore.
Yeah, passionate guy.
A passionate guy.
Right, just to see what everything's about, you know. I don't feel like I have any message to teach or anything, but I if I can say anything, it's just easy to see for yourself. You know, it's a lot easier than we might think. And then stimulate people to go for it, you know, of all ages, not just, and especially younger ages. And then, you know, feeling good about ourselves is what makes it always spills over onto the other, right? And so then if the world's ever going to work, it's got to start working by feeling good about ourselves and having an intention to live peacefully, not only with our mate, but with our community and relatives and family and state and in the world. And so
do everything as much as you can.
So there you go.
There you go.
Thanks for being a part of it.
Well, thank you for being a part of it too. And peace.
Okay, thank you very much. And thanks everyone for watching, and stay tuned.